Hello and welcome back to this car modeling tutorial series from BlenderCookie.com. My name is Johnathan Williamson, and in this section we're going to go ahead and model the back end here with the spoiler and such. So the first thing that I want to do on this actually is go ahead and swap out my extra reference here so we have a good angle on it. And I'm just going to open the image and then control click on the open dialog to actually load up the full file browser, which will show all the image previews. And I'm going to go ahead and load up this one here of the green version. It's the same model, just a different color. And it has a slightly better view of the back end. And the main area that I'm actually looking at here, we'll go ahead and open this up, is the underneath the spoiler here. We've got these shapes in here that we need to look at. And most of the references don't have a good angle on this, and so hopefully I'm actually able to get something that's fairly close to how it's actually constructed. Even after doing a bunch of Googling and whatnot, I was not able to find a real good close-up of exactly how this is built, and so I'm just going to have to build it based on my best guess. So if it's not accurate, I do apologize for that, but that's one of the things that we have to do sometimes as a 3D artist, particularly when we don't have exact references to work from, is to make our best effort. So that's exactly what we're going to do. And so I'm going to go ahead and just position this about like so, just so I can see it nicely. And then we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and select the car body here and hit tab to go into edit mode. And I'm going to begin by constructing the basic spoiler. So for the spoiler here, I'm just going to position my cursor right about the center of the spoiler and a little further over to the left. And remember, this is in back view, which is Control 1, and then side view. We're just going to hit spacebar, add cube, scale down, and then maybe scale down further along the z-axis, just to about the general height or thickness of the spoiler. Something about like that. We'll go ahead and scale it up along the x-axis to make the width here. And then we can deselect this side by hitting B and middle click and dragging, and then just grab this side and move it in until it locks to the center with our do clipping enabled. Now, when you do that though, be sure to go ahead and delete this inside face, or else when you add a subsurf modifier, that will pinch right there and cause you some problems. So we'll go ahead and hit X and delete faces. And now we can go ahead and do all the shaping that we want. So I'm going to go ahead and add in several loop cuts along here. So let's Control R and then scroll up on the scroll wheel. And now if we look at this, we can see that this actually has like an airfoil effect to it. It looks like an airplane wing. And so the top appears to be relatively flat, and then the bottom curves around. So we'll go ahead and just add that effect. And we'll just get it something similar to this. There we go. That ought to do it. Excuse me. Okay. So now looking at this, we actually don't have to go a whole lot further in that. Most of the detail then is on the bottom part and this, but since we will be adding a subsurf modifier, I am going to go ahead and add in another edge loop and take it down to the end. And in fact, to help with unwrapping, if you were to ever unwrap this car, we're also going to add in 3 more edge loops along the center to help even out the spacing on the edges, because otherwise you can tend to get some stretching and such on the UVs. Okay, now currently the whole thing feels way too wide, so I'm going to select it all and scale along the y-axis to about like that. Looks about right. And now looking at the position of this is pretty much directly above the tail light here, so we need to maybe move it in just a little bit, maybe right about there. Okay, and then one last thing I'm going to do is add in one more edge loop right here, to which I will then scale out along the y-axis just slightly. And that'll help keep this nice sharp edge and also round off this surface, but keep it relatively flat towards the top. Okay, so that's that. Now let's go ahead and do the end caps on the spoiler. And so for this, I'm actually just going to go ahead and select this one face, or these faces here. I'm just going to hit Shift D, right click, and then scale it up. And then I'll go ahead and just do some manual shaping. Maybe bring all these down. And this still has the same general shape, but it's much softer. And if we get real close in here, we can see that the tip here pretty much comes right to the edge there. And so we can bring that up. We'll smooth out the top a little bit. And that should just about do it. Let's go ahead and now bring it in just a little bit, overlap just a tiny bit in case of any kind of mishap or anything. And we will go ahead and delete these faces. Then we'll reselect this portion, and we're just going to hit E to extrude. Take it out along the x-axis, about there. And then we'll go ahead and add in 2 edge loops, which we will then hit Alt-S and scale out just slightly to add that little bit of a rounded form and keep fairly sharp edges on it. Okay, and looking at this, I feel maybe it's a little too thin, so let's go ahead and select the whole thing and scale it up along the x-axis a little bit more. There we go. That feels better. And you'll notice, obviously, doing these little things like this, even the very simple details, really start to bring the whole thing together pretty quickly, so this is kind of fun. Okay, we're going to continue, and what I want to do now is add in the support beams for the spoiler, and so we'll do the same thing. We're just going to go ahead and add a cube, and you'll notice that our cursor is already pretty much positioned, so we'll just add a cube, and then scale it down, scale further along the x-axis to what appears to be about the right width, and then we'll just take it down like this, and we can see that it pretty much goes right up to the edge of the spoiler. And on the other side, it goes about halfway up. And we're just going to go ahead and pull it down to about there. And then let's just go ahead and add in some 2 edge loops, which we can then pull across, or actually first it goes the other way, and then it curves back, about like that. And since we're going to have subsurf on, we can actually pretty much leave that like it is, but I'm going to do the same thing that I did on the ends, in that I'm going to go ahead and add in 2 edge loops right down the center, and then I'm going to hit Alt-S and scale them out to keep that nice rounded form, but keep it fairly sharp at the same time. And then along with this, I'll go ahead and select the bottom with box select, and then scale down to Z along the 0, or along Z to 0, and then hit X and delete faces. Okay. So that's pretty much the spoiler right there. We'll probably do some finer detailing, like doing some, I think there's some, you can see a couple of screws on the sides. And actually, I just realized that I forgot a portion on this. Well, actually, no. One of the differences between the 2 versions is that this end has a slight flip at the bottom, but this end does not. So we're going to go ahead and just leave that out. You can always add it if that is what you so desire. But for the sake of time, we'll go ahead and leave it out. And since it matches our specific reference, that'll be more accurate if we don't do it. Okay, so now looking at this, we can see that there's basically 3 parts that we need to model on the trunk here. We've got the smooth, flat part, which is the trunk in general, which we'll model first, and we'll do that just as pretty much straight across. And then we have this flat portion that comes out that supports the spoiler. And then we have these bulges here, which, like I said before, I can't discern exactly what they are. In some pictures, they appear to be air vents, and I think maybe they change from version to version a little bit. But in this one, they appear to just be design elements where it comes out and then goes down slightly. And you can tell partially by the shadow as well. And then there's nothing in the center there. And so that's kind of what we're going to shoot for in this one. And see, in this one here, they almost appear to be air vents. So, we're going to kind of leave it at kind of in between and go with it. So first thing I want to do is go ahead and model the trunk. And so let's just select this, and we're going to select these 2 vertices. And we're just going to hit Shift D, move it in slightly, and hit E to extrude on the edges, and take it straight into the center. At which point we will also add in a little more curve to it. And then let's select this edge, and we're going to extrude it down like this, down to the bottom. Okay, and now you can see maybe we'll add in just a little bit more curve to it, and let's add in 2 edge loops to fit the previous one, or the bumper below. Okay, and that's pretty much all that's needed, although we need to move these out just a little bit more, or else we're going to get a slight pinch right here. Okay, now I want to go ahead and select this edge, which we can do by just Alt-right-clicking on it. And we need to take it up to right about, if we're looking at this, it'd be right about here. And we can get a better view from the side. So I'm just going to take it up. Yeah, that looks just about right. You can see on the side view it's coming to right about, well, no, it'd be more like there. Yeah, there we are, because it's about halfway down the tail light, which, again, I think these views are slightly different, or else it may be a problem with my model currently. But we're going to try and compensate for that. But we can guess that it's right about there. And looking at the side view, this looks to be about right, since remember we have to, this is more of a up-down view. We're looking down on it slightly, and so we kind of have to compensate for that. This is looking good. We're going to go and add in another edge loop there just to even things out. I'm going to do it right in the center, so I can just middle click whenever I hit Control R. Okay, and I'm going to take it up along the Z-axis just a tiny bit while holding down Shift to make sure that's a nice smooth surface. Okay, so now what I want to go ahead and do is extrude this flat portion, and we're going to do this simply by one thing that we'll notice is that our spoiler beams are way too wide right now, because they should be a little smaller than the trunk itself, as we can see here. So we need to bring them in to right about there is where they should be. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and select this loop, pull it out along the x-axis, and then select these faces, or these vertices, all the way to here, here, all of these faces. Because now what we're going to do is a kind of cool technique that I like to use, in that we're going to hit E to extrude region, and then immediately right-click, deselect this vertex, these vertices there, pull these up, and then select all those vertices again, including the duplicates, hit E to extrude again, region, right-click, deselect, and pull those up, which then leaves us with this quad here, which we can hit W, remove doubles, and Alt-J, and fill that into a quad, leaving us with a nice edge flow. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select these, scale down to 0 along the Z. We'll do that with these ones as well. Deselect the extraneous. There we are. Pull this down, and then we can see that this has a curve on it, and so I actually want to pull these back up just a little bit. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and slide this whole thing further along the X. There we go. And we're going to scale this along the Y just a little bit. It's maybe a little too big. Maybe bring these up a little, making everything fit. And then it actually looks like on the spoiler here that these edges are actually a little sharper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this edge, hit Control E and edge slide, and holding down Control, I'm just going to slide it in about halfway and do the same thing here. And that'll give us a nice edge on that. Okay, so we can see that now we need to go ahead and bring these out so that we get this inset curve. So we'll just do this and this. And then we'll maybe add in another edge loop right along there and do that. So you'll notice one thing that it also did is it redirected the edge flow through here so that we can add in another edge loop like we just did without going all the way the length of the car and things like that. Okay. Now, right now, that may be a little sharp, so we're going to continue to smooth it out just a little bit. Go. And we'll add in another edge loop right along the base so that that stays nice and sharp. Okay, so we're making good progress here. Go ahead and hit Control W just to save it. And now let's go ahead and do these things back here that haven't been completely discernible. Now, one thing you will also notice is that we've got a little more curve on the back of this trunk here than we currently have. So what I'm going to do is select these vertices, and we're just going to pull them up just a little bit. And then we can do the same thing, starting with these inside ones. About like that. Because that actually appears to be the case on those. It's kind of hard to tell. So now what I want to do is we're going to go ahead and add in another edge loop right here, because this is going to be the center point, which actually then we're going to add in one more, which we're going to then pull down. And we're actually going to just take it right level with these, scale down to 0. Rotate back up a little bit. Okay, now right now that's all too wide, so we'll select all these edge loops and scale in along the x-axis, right about there. Okay, let's go ahead and add in one more edge loop here, and I want to take these two areas up along the x-axis some more, which will also then take these up as well. And let's see, looking at this some more. Again, it's real hard to tell. One thing that we can see is that this actually ends right at the edge of the trunk, and so we need to get rid of these ones here. Or no, I actually just need to get rid of this sharp line here. This. So what we can do, this came from sharpening this up, which should not be the case on the top. Excuse me. And so I'm just going to select it and hit Control E to edge slide, and we'll just slide it right along, and then we can take it up along the Z-axis a little bit, and that'll smooth that right out. We can see maybe we need to go ahead and smooth this back out a little bit. Same here. Alrighty. We're going to go ahead and leave that for the time being, unless maybe I can get another good angle on it or something. But we'll go ahead and leave it for the time being so that we can continue moving on down the car. And so this next part, I'm going to go ahead and do the bottom of the windshield, or the base below the windshield, the back window, and this air vent here. And so starting off, I'm going to go ahead and just select this loop after correcting this vertex. So we're just going to select this here and hit Shift D, move it up just a little bit, because remember we're going to extrude all these seams in. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this extra vertex here, so I'm going to select it, select the second vertex next to it, and hit W, merge at last. So that'll just move that right over there. And then we can select our whole loop, or whole edge loop. Excuse me. And we're going to extrude it right up. And we can see that based on our references, that this appears to be right about here, which also would be correlate to it right about there, actually. You know, there's not a whole lot of space there. So that should be good. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a slight curve to it. So we'll just pull these down a little bit. Pull these down. Okay, and now I just want to be sure that these are nice and even, so I'm just going to select these, hit W smooth a couple of times. Oh, nope, that's not what I want. I'm going to just pull these all down like that. There we go. Okay, now we can actually slide this edge loop along a little bit just to make sure that's nice and even. We don't get any pinching or anything like that. Alrighty, and now for the spoiler, or for the vent here, we're going to do kind of the same thing we did before. We're going to add in a couple edge loops here. Actually, we'll do two first. Yes, and I'm going to slide this edge loop up like this, and then we're going to go ahead and select these faces here. You can see that's right about the right width because it should be a little less than the spoiler. We're going to hit Control Tab to go back to vertice mode, hit E to extrude, right click, deselect this portion, pull it up, select this portion again, extrude it again, right click, pull it up, and hit W, remove doubles, and we can hit Shift J or Alt J to remove those triangles. And now we have a perfect form with which to extrude our spoiler from. For those of you that have maybe watched it, that's also one of the same techniques that I use when modeling a low poly hand at times. It may not seem like hard surface modeling and organic modeling have much to do with each other, but you may remember me talking about edge loops and such and how they are almost more important sometimes in hard body modeling. One thing you also find is that a lot of the techniques that you use to get good edge loops and things like that with organic modeling immediately transfer over to hard body, or hard surface as some people like to call it. Either way, all the skills transfer. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to select these faces here. I'm going to go ahead and select my spoiler and get it out of my way, so I'm just hiding it. So selecting it and hitting H. We'll select these faces now. Hit E to extrude region, right click, and then W smooth to bring it in, and then scale along the Z axis a little bit. And at which point we can then just hit E to extrude, take it in along the normal a little. And then we'll do that again. Just a little bit. Okay. And now what I want to do now is go in and kind of smooth out this area here. So you shouldn't see a bottom edge. So what I'll do is select all of these vertices. Get rid of my extras. And I'm going to take them back further along the Y. And down a little bit, just because we want to get this nice smooth surface here. So that's good for the center vertices. Now we need to do these ones here. Okay, now the other thing I want to do is go ahead and pull these in along the x-axis. As you can see, this is kind of just a smooth curve like that. Alrighty. And that should pretty much do it. I will go ahead and add in another edge loop right along there, just to make sure that we've got a nice good edge on it. Which I'll then deselect these top vertices. And I'm going to just hit Control E and slide this down just a little bit. Another thing we can do to smooth this out a little is bring these in, and then bring these in. And another thing is that this actually appears to go all the way up right to the edge of the window. And so I'm just going to go ahead and bring this down about like that. The reason that I'm not just deleting it is because I want to maintain this edge loop structure, because otherwise I would not be able to add an edge loop all the way along here to sharpen that up once we get to the seams. Okay, so that is that. All that's left now in terms of the general modeling on the car is the all the windows to the headlights, the grills in here, and the wheels. And so this is pretty much it. You know, we're getting really close. We're actually a lot closer than you may think. Things like the headlights and whatnot will not take long at all. One thing that I did just notice in terms of our general form here that I need to work on, and that I'll go ahead and do a little bit of it now, is this shape here should basically mirror the shape on the bottom. And so I'm actually feeling like the top one is probably more accurate to the actual car. So I'm going to just pull this loop up a little, pull this up, and then let's select this area in here. Get rid of these vertices. And let's see. Select those. As you can see, this is kind of smoothing out there. And we'll pull this back just a little bit, pull that in a little bit, and we can go ahead and add in another edge loop there, which will actually be good for the shape anyway. And that should be good right about there. Okay. So yeah, we're actually really close. As you can see, it's really starting to come together. There are, of course, some things that we need to tweak, such as the transition between these surfaces here need to be smoother and whatnot. But some of these things will be a lot easier to notice once we add in the subsurf and whatnot. So this is it. I'm going to go ahead and call it quits for this portion here, just so that we can divide things up evenly and keep the subject focus pretty much the same. Although actually, real quick, I'm just going to go ahead. This is really bugging me. We're going to smooth these out just while I'm here. There we go, because this should be a nice smooth transition. There we go. That's a lot better. You know, it still needs a little bit of work here and there, but it's much better than it was a moment ago. That is one thing that I definitely find when I'm working, at least, is that a lot of, I will take time to do all the tweaking at once, but I also find that a lot of times I will be working on something completely different and then happen to notice something here or there that catches my eye as being off. And so I do the tweaking then, just take 30 minutes apart or so. And so sometimes I think I spend more time jumping around the model than I do focusing on an individual portion. But honestly, I think that actually probably in the end helps the entire thing act as one whole model. And so I certainly would not discourage it at all. Okay. Oh, and we need a little more curve on this. There we go. Okay, so yeah, that's now much, much better. But like I was saying, we're going to go ahead and leave it there for the time being. I will join up with you again shortly with the next section, which will go ahead and fill in all of the windshields and the headlamps and things like that. So I, again, hope you, as always, have found this helpful, and I will see you again soon. Thanks again for watching.